Okay, not sure we've learned this Maamar before. Let's bring up the text. Um, okay, so we're going to actually do something different this time. We're going to um, we're going to go mostly. We're going to skip to middle of the Maamar because it's a long Maamar. This is on a pasuk. This is on a pasuk in the end of this week's Parasha Chukas. So just to bring up the pasuk is talking about, it's a poetic pasuk that talks about the defeat of Sichon. Sichon, of course, is the war that the Jewish people have with Sichon on the way into Eretz Yisrael. So it says here, the pasuk says that Vayikach Yisrael kol ha'arim ha'ela v'yeshiv Yisrael b'chol arei ha'amori v'chezhem l'chol b'nei Seha. Israel took all the cities, and Israelis and the Israelites dwelt in the cities of the Amoris and in Cheshbon and in the villages around. Now, the Torah tells us something that's outside the story. It says, Ki Cheshbon ir Sichon melech Amori. Cheshbon was the city of Sichon, the king of Amori. V'hu nilcha b'melech Moav harishon v'yikach es kol arza miyadi ad Arnon. And the king Sichon took from Moab, which was a neighboring country. So it's kind of a part of Moab that was conquered by Sichon, and he made it into his capital. And therefore, he says, the pasuk says, Alkein yomer hamoishlim. So therefore, those who speak mashalim, parables, Bo Cheshbon, come to Cheshbon, Tibona v'tikoinen ir Sichon. May it be built and established as the city of Sichon. And then it says, Ki eish yotze mi Cheshbon, a fire goes out of Cheshbon, which is again the city. Seemingly, it's just a verse about the city. Lahava mikirya Sichon. A fire has gone forth from Cheshbon, a flame from the city of Sichon. Ochla or Moav. He consumed Or of Moav. Mibali Bamis Arnon, the mass of the altars of Arnon. Okay, so this is the pasuk that we're referring to. So let's see what this has to do with the Maamar. Just going to do the first few lines of the Maamar, and then we're going to skip ahead. It says, so therefore those who say parables say, Bo Cheshbon, come to Cheshbon, Bal Bamis Arnon, to those who, again, conquering the place of the people who build the altars of Arnon. Zine Darsha Razala, rabbis have taught us in the Baba Basra, that what does it mean, Hamoshlim? Who are these who give parables? What are we talking about? Who's talking about Sichon? So we're going to see this pasuk is really a reference in one's individual service of Hashem. So the Gemara in Baba Basra says, Hamoshlim this is all referring to each individual. Elu Hamoshlim beyitzram. The word mashal could mean two things, and possibly it's for the same reason. Mashal could mean a parable, a mashal, an example, or mashal from the word moishal could be to rule. So Alkein Yemer Hamoshlim. So the Gemara in Baba Basra says, Elu Hamoshlim beyitzram. These are the people who know how to rule their evil inclination, to not lose control of their actions and their midos and their attributes. Bo Cheshbon, what does it mean, come to Cheshbon? Again, Cheshbon is seemingly just referring to the city that was conquered by Sichon from Moab. Bo, from the word Cheshbon, also means from the word to make an evaluation. Boyu nachashev Cheshbonai shel. A person has to make an evaluation of what's going on. So the Moishlim is those who could rule over their Yetzer Hara, and come to Cheshbon, come to make an evaluation, like a Cheshbon and Hanefesh, an evaluation of what's going on in your life. So Lahavanzah, what does this mean what's this Gemara in Baba Basra that's learning this idea from the verse in this week's parasha? What does it mean? Gam Lahavan Maamar also we have to understand what our rabbis teach us. They call ha'oina amen yehi shmei rabba mevorach. We know when we say the Kaddish. In the middle of the Kaddish, we answer, Yehi Shmei Rabbi Mevarach, may the great name of God be blessed. Kol koichai, with all your strength. Koirin like Zardine shal ayin shana. Now you will nullify a negative decree of 70 years that could have been decreed on a person for 70 years prior. That's something unfortunate or something that is unpleasant is going to happen. If you say Yamin Yeheshmei Rabbah with all your strength, even a decree that's 70 years old means it's already stored, it's happening, it's not something fresh that kind of the you could change someone's mind. Here, God already, the court of heaven already decreed it 70 years ago. But if you say Yeheshmei Rabbah with all your strength, you could rip up that, you could nullify that decree. So what does this all mean? Okay, so from here, the Rebbe goes, the Alter Rebbe comes down. And he explains, in order to understand this, we have to first understand the subject that we've discussed many times. Why does the neshama come down to this world? What is accomplished? What is the neshama? It means you can't just say that the neshama has a job to do that's nothing to do with itself. There has to be within the actual sign, siman, that something's accomplished in our coming down to this world is not just something abstract, has nothing to do with the person. For instance, you have a person that could have a job to do something, it's nothing to do with you. Someone needs you to do something for them. So they hire you or they ask you, whatever it is, you do something for someone else, either for pay or not, but it's not the point. But it has nothing to do with you. So someone else needs it. So we can't say that the only reason the neshama comes down to this world is something, so to say, for God. There's nothing to do with us. I mean, the neshama is doing fine in heaven. The neshama doesn't need to be in this world. The neshama comes down to this world to do something that has nothing to do with it. So what's the reason the neshama comes down to this world? Because the neshama is perfect before it comes down to this world. Doesn't need to gain anything in this world. So from this we start the idea of that a person has to. The idea is there's the way Hashem is in the world. Mimala kolam, the way Hashem fills the world. It means He created the world, but He created the world in such a way that there's going to be the specifics, the specific energy in everything, which is you could. It's like a person who can live their whole life without a higher purpose. It exists. The world exists. Everything's exact detail. Nothing's by mistake. Everything's by design. But what's the purpose of it all? Why does the world exist? The same question we have on our soul, we have on the world. What's the purpose of the world? So the purpose of the world is to bring Sovev into Mamalik. That's the Nakuda. That's the bottom line. To reveal the infinite light, the light that's outside of the world, and to bring it into the world. And in that we have Olam Shana Nefesh. We have to bring it into space, and we have to bring it into time, and we have to bring, so to say, the Nefesh, the abstract, the Sovev, into Olam, into time, into space. And how do we do that? Through time, through consistency. And then that's the higher purpose that the soul receives. That's not just that the soul is able to bring down Sovev into this world, but why is the soul able to bring Sovev? I mean, a light, a revelation of godliness that's not been in this world. How does the soul have the ability to do it? It's only in this world. So therefore, it's, so to say, it's part of our avodah that we have to accomplish, because God wants Sovev, the higher light of God, to be revealed within the limitations of this world, and the only one that could do it is the Jewish people. So and when the Jewish people do it, that's the elevation, that's the purpose of the souls, and that's the purpose of the souls, why the souls were created from Hashem. God wanted that there should be dir b'tachtonim. Dir b'tachtonim means Sovev, to be revealed in Mamala, the encompassing light. What's it mean, the encompassing light? Something that's beyond the norm, beyond the world. It means the world could continue to go as it went for almost 2,000 years before Matan Torah. The idea was that it was all dependent on Matan Torah. Because by Matan Torah, all of a sudden you start to take the worldly things and to make it to holy. Make tefillin, make a Beis Hamikdash, make a shul, keeping Shabbos, where you're transforming the time that's just been there. Seemingly, you're revealing godliness in that time. Okay, so that's the beginning of the Maamar. Ideas that we've definitely studied before. And the Rebbe talks about it quite a bit. The idea to explain this obviously in great detail, but we only have a limited amount of time. So therefore, we're going to start from the actual parsha. Okay, let's start from Gimel. Maybe we should start from David, but we'll start from Gimel. And this is the point of Amin Yeheshmei Rabbah. Yeheshmei Rabbah means the great name, which is beyond the world, should be mevarach, should be brought down into the world. And that's why you could break up a decree of 70 years. What power does saying Amin Yeheshmei Rabbah have to break up a decree of 70 years? Is because the decree of 70 years is based on the system of the world. But when you're doing something that's for a higher purpose, so then even, and we're not saying that the decree was baseless, even if the decree has basis. But when you're reaching for a higher power, you're reaching from an energy or to bringing down an energy that's more powerful than any limitation, even if there's a reason for this decree. So v'zeh inyan Maamar Razal kol ha'ina amin yehi shmei rabba v'kol koichai koin like zardina shalayim sham. This is what it means, that if a person answers yehi shmei rabba with all their strength, they could rip a decree even of 70 years. Kipir shmei rabba, what does it mean, the great name? Hainu v'china sovev kalam. It's to bring down the encompassing light. Shezeh ha'nikra shmei gadol, that's the great name. Ki hini mevur makam acher, explained in other places. And the poetic Moshe Moshe spoke. Ki shmoisev shal kadosh baruch hu. Heim ispashus vashpaz lishavis midaisav isbarach. Shem avai benikat pasachul b'chachma v'shem el b'chesed. We know that the names of Hashem represent God's midos. Means how does God manifest, so to say, almost limit himself into the definitions of the attributes? Chesed is kindness. That's a limitation of being kind. Of course, the idea is hiskalulus. We have to have the coexistence of the names, meaning that there's a balance of the names. Hashem Elokeinu is Tferes, and which is with the Shema Yud Kei Vav Kei, and then there's Gvura. But there's Chesed and there's Gvura. There's different names. So when Hashem comes down into the names, that certainly limits God within the midos. That Shmoisev Shal Kadosh Baruch Hu, the names of Hashem, Hispashis Vashpas Hishavis Midaisav Hisbarach. Through the names, God creates the attributes. Shem Avaya, and therefore the name Yud Kei Vav Kei. V'nikud Pasach Hu B'chachma. If you have a Pasach in Shem Avaya, then Pasach is a flat sound. Then it's the attribute of it's within the wisdom, within Chachma. Shem Kel, the name Kel, Chesed Kel Kol Hayom, is Chesed, is kindness. That's all the way Hashem comes out into the world, filling the world. He fills the world through the limitations or the definitions of the names. That's all the what we would call the regular names. But the regular names means the way Hashem is in the Mimali, he's filled and, so to say, limited. So lahavdil, in the definition of the name. And that's the whole point of Mimali Kalam. The whole point of Mimali Kalam, what does it mean Hashem fills the world? You have to fill the space. A space is definitive. So when you fill the space, it's a defined space. But the great name, that's beyond the limitations of Mimali of filling. It's encompassing the world. It's like what it's brought down from our rabbis. Before the world was created, there was no world. It was only God and his name. What name are we talking about? Shemai HaGadol. That's the infinite. Now, even Hayehu Shmoy Levad, that's already after the Tzimtzum at some level, because it's or you could say that's the force of before the Tzimtzum, but it's where that comes from. But even Shemai is already a limitation, but it's a limitation of Soviv Kalam. Because like we always say in Chassidic, it explains that Soviv Kalam, by definition, means surrounding the world, that has a connection to the world. Otherwise, you can't say it's surrounding the world or encompassing the world. But it's beyond the world. So it's Hu Shmai before the world. God and his name, which means it's an infinite light. It's not definitive. It's not restricted, so to say, by the limitations of the Eser Shviras of Atzilus, the 10 attributes of Atzilus. So what does it mean when we say, may his great name be blessed la'olam forever? The idea is to bring Shmoi HaGadol into the world. In the world of creation, in formation and in action. It's not enough that it should come down to the world of Atzilus. That the Shmoi HaGadol, the great name, has to come all the way into this world of action. That for my honor, in my creation, in my formation, and even in doing, should come down the Shmoi HaGadol. What's it mean to bring it down? That the Shmoi HaGadol, the great name of God, should be revealed. That's why we say, what do we say always? That the ultimate level of that revelation is going to be with the coming of Mashiach, where the Shmoi HaGadol, the great name of Hashem, is going to be revealed for all to see. We don't want that there should be any hiding or obstacles that are hiding the light, are preventing the light from being revealed in the world. As we said before, that That the idea is that godliness should be in all places of the world. And that's the Amen Yehei Shmei Rabbah, that's the Shema Gadol. The great name should be revealed in this world. That's why we say Amen Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevarach L'Olam Olmei Amai. We mentioned the world 3 times. Shederech Klal Gimel Olam is Klal and Bria Yitziv Asiya. V'derech Prat to B'chulei Olam. And the idea is that should come down specifically in all the worlds, but in general, even in the details of each world, should be the infinite light of Shema Gadol of God's great name. When you bring such a powerful force that's out of the nature of this world, it's like Zardina Shalayim Shana. You could even rip up a decree of 70 years. Pirish. The Kemoishi Yesheva Midas the Kedusha Benefesh Alikis. We know that there's 7 levels of holiness, the 7 attributes. And they're represented by the 7 names in the godly soul. Kol Achas Klum Asar, each one is made up of 10, because each one is made up of the nature of the other midos, like the severity within kindness, etc. Like we say in the Sphere Somer. So if you count 10 times 7, it's 70. When we do 7 times 7, it's the 49. Depends, different. Not always. We do sometimes 6 times. We do 7 times 6, so it's a 42. It's kach yesh gam kein zayin midas b'nefesh bahamas. We have also 7 of the nature of the animal soul. Kol echas kol mi'aser also has. It's 7 times 10 is 70. And the point of this world is that the godly soul has to go into the animal soul and cleanse it and refine the character of the animal soul. Ariel, you know someone called Michael?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, as it says, a person is given 70 years to analyze, deal, and refine the 70 components of the animal soul. And the bad character of the or so to say the coarse character of the animal soul. Each one made up of 10. That's what it means, a decree of 70 years. What's the decree of 70 years? We're not talking about some abstract idea. We're talking about the idea of your animal soul. It's made up of 7 times 10 is 70. And a person could rip, when you bring down Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevarach, you bring down the great name, you could rip up the decree, the negativity, the coarseness, change the character of the 70 components of the animal soul. When a person brings down from the infinite, from the encompassing light, from the Shmei Rabbah, from the great name, and what does that mean to bring it down? What does it mean in avoida? What do you have to do? The iskafia sitra achra, to restrain the other side. Iskafia means to subdue, to restrain yourself. Then that brings godliness down. We know there's 2 avoidas of iskafia and isabcha. Iskafia means to control yourself, to subdue yourself. It's from the word kafia, to force, meaning to say you have a nature that wants to do certain things. But you control yourself. You haven't changed yourself. Ishapcha means the hafoch, to change yourself. That's a higher level. But where God's pleasure, so to say, is. In our Avodas Hashem is, of course, in iskafia, as much and maybe even greater than ishapcha. Because when a person has a desire to do something, you want to eat something non-kosher, or whatever the issue each person struggles with, and you control yourself. The skafia is stalik ikar the kuchabricha b'chuli almim. That's bringing the soviv down. That brings the shmei. That's the shmei hagadol coming down to the world. Shlayalimu v'leyastiroid. And every time that you work, you exercise the skafia. It breaks a little bit of the darkness, and no longer should be a concealment to the light of God. That's what it means to rip up a decree of 70 years. That through exercising iskafia, and that through working on oneself, and the 70 components of the animal soul, and with using your 70 components of your godly soul, 10 times 7 of the 7 midas, the 7 attributes, the 7 different character traits of a person. So that is the challenge, that's the work, that's how you bring down, and that's what it means to bring Shema Gadol. That's what it means to bring down the great name of God. So it's not just the dry performance of the mitzvahs, God forbid, but there's the effort and the toil in performing the mitzvahs. It's not. That's why mitzvahs are not necessarily easy. A person says, why is so hard to keep Shabbos? Why is it so hard to keep kosher? There's a reason behind it. It's not just because it's the nature of the challenge is because the animal soul is pushing back, and it's a struggle. Like Yaakov was told, like Rivka was told by Shem, La'oim Yemites, like the Alter Rebbe writes in Tanya about the Beinoni. It's always a struggle. And therefore, now we go back to our verse in this week's parsha. This is what those who give parables said. Boyu Cheshbon. Boyu Nachashev Cheshbon Shalaylam. What is the Gemara saying about Bas? We have to make our evaluations. Pirish HaMoishlim, Ela Moishlim B'Yitzrim. The Gemara says, what is a Moishel? Moishel doesn't just mean the parables, also means from the person who's a Moishel, who's a person who rules. Those who rule over the Yetzer Hara, that's an exercise of iskafia, of controlling oneself. Like Faya Sitra Achra, to work on your other side, on the other side of negativity. Kinis Kalil, as you mentioned before, Mishvir's Taivas Agufanias, to break our natural desires, our bodily desires for things of this world. And the world and the idea of iskafia. If a person feels, oh, I conquered it. I passed this moment. Hey, conquering one moment. That's why it's olam shalom nef. It's nefesh olam shana, right? It's the soul, but you have the space and you have the time. Every day you have to conquer it. So it's not just a one-time conquer. Of course, we're not putting down every win is a win, but nevertheless, there's the consistency. There's the space, and then there's the consistency. Space is olam, consistency is time. But then there's also higher levels. What today was something that you achieved, and tomorrow may not be any more challenge, but you'll have a higher level of challenge because this goes deeper and deeper to work on your taivas. Your taivas maybe today were very coarse. You maybe look back in your life at when you were a little younger and say, oh, those things that I struggled with when I was younger, I don't even, they're not really such a struggle anymore. Although you should never be sure on yourself because you never know. But nevertheless, then you have higher struggles, more refined. It's like silver, right? Silver and gold. To get it to 100% is very challenging. You could have 99%, but between 99 and 100, there's a lot of decibels. And it could be, you want to get more pure and more pure, right? You pay a high price for absolute pure silver. So Bishvir Satayv Zagufan is working on yourself, getting out the sigim, getting out the bad alloys. Bisur Meiran, how do you do it? Exercising by not doing bad. Not only in action, even in machshava, in your thought, you don't think things that you shouldn't be thinking. And that could be ego, jealousy, dibur, you don't say things you shouldn't be saying. Maisi, of course, you don't do things you shouldn't be doing. V'gam b'riyah shmir. Also in exercising what you're looking at. You say, what's the difference? I looked, right? You say, we learned in Torah that at the beginning of the sin of the tree of knowledge, it was the Adam, first man wanted to look. He just wanted to look at the tumah. And he looked at the tumah, and that was that. So v'gam b'riyah is watching what you look at, v'shmir, what conversations you listen to, what things you listen to. Don't follow your hearts or your eyes. And again, it doesn't just mean to look at inappropriate things. Don't look at a person inappropriately. Meaning, don't look at the bad of someone. You see someone, and you could look negative at that person. Like that's what I'm saying. The levels of person, you think you conquered what you're looking at. Have you conquered how you're looking at things? How you look at your fellow person? So, oitzim einav, you close your eyes, mira yisra, to not look negative at people. Be stakalus in your vision. Sanctify yourself even in the permissible. So kedusha goes higher and higher and higher. We're not just talking about struggles of things of the forbidden, but even within the permissible. Sanctify yourself in the permissible. People, you may not think of it. You may think it's something small, but if you even exercise a one-time win of you have an opportunity to not look at something, whatever that thing is, however each person in their own struggle, each person knows what they deal with, and you don't look at it, and you don't look at negative at someone. You could very easily look negative at someone, and maybe the person is deserving for your negative look, but you don't. And when you oitzim ein of mira Yisrael, you close your eyes. Is yistalik yikar the guchabrichu? That brings godliness down to the world. Lies gilei soiviv kolamim. That's the revelation of the encompassing light. B'saycha helen v'hesed shebekuli amen into this darkness. and every bit of light permeates, breaks through the darkness of this world. Therefore, it says that those people who are working and hopefully successful on ruling over the Yetzer Hara, so to those people, it says, you're already on the path of working on yourself. You're on the path of knowing and exercising to be a Moshel, to be a ruler over your Yetzer Hara. The next stage is go figure out the calculations of the world. Peter, where does that mean, Olam? Olam is from the idea of concealment. So what do we say to this person? Then you start to understand the Cheshbon. What is the reason? Cheshbon is what's going on of the soul coming down to this world of darkness. Because you realize that everything in life, there's no such thing as going down for going down. That's why the Jewish people is atam to you am segula. Segula means a segel. Segel is the vowel of three dots. We've learned many times that there's the vowel of three dots there's one dot up, one dot down, and then another dot back up. A shurik is three dots down. That's the vowel of shurik. A shurik is not a good thing because you're falling down. A segel is you go down but you go back up. That's why it says God told the Jewish people, you're going to be in this world, but you're going to be you're people of segul, you're people of segel. Even when you go down, you go back up. So that's the idea of Cheshbon Shalom. Why is the Yerida Shalom Leil Mazeh Beguf HaChoshech? Why did the soul come down to this world, which is a Yerida, right? The soul is just fine in heaven. Doesn't need this. He says, why does the soul come down to this world? Is only to be able to elevate even higher. And how do you elevate higher? It's only coming down to this world, because only in this world you could exercise restraint. In the upper worlds, you have no challenges. There's no issues. Only in this world you have issues, you have things that are pulling you. And you have good arguments to pull you. Financial, other reasons to pull you. But you have to overcome them. And that brings down the great light of godliness. So now he says, it's a beautiful pshat in the pasuk. Like we said before, we're talking about Sichon. We didn't get to Sichon yet. But we're talking about, but first we're talking about that the people who are Moshli means a person who rules on the Yetzer Hara. Means when you're able to realize that the whole point is through skaf, you're exercising restraint. That brings Shemai HaGadol, that brings down the great name. So now you understand why you came down to this world. Now you can make an evaluation. It's clear you came down to this world for the purpose of the elevation that you get only through being in this world. He says another idea appears for Cheshbon Shalom. What's another reason? What does it mean to figure out the Cheshbonis, the calculations of this world? What's going on in this world? V'ikra, and the Rebbe says this is the main idea. That as much as the darkness or the concealment of this world, which is the lowest or the end of all spaces, and therefore in this world, and actually at the end of the time of this world, there's a double, very deep darkness. So the darker something is, and the thicker the darkness is, and that's what it means. You have to make a Cheshbon Shalom. You have to know what kind of world you're in. Means the first answer we said to Cheshbon Shalom is to understand why you came down to this world. So then you knowing that you're a Moshel, if you're a Moshel, if you rule over your Yetzer Hara, so that gives purpose of why you're here in this world. And the deeper idea is know what you're dealing with. Make a Cheshbon. What kind of world are you dealing with? When you recognize how dark the darkness is, then you know you need a great light, because not every darkness requires the same light. A lighter darkness, something that's not so heavy, may not need such a strong light. A deeper, stronger light, to make sure that this darkness no longer is dark. And even deeper, as the Rebbe explains in many of the Maamarim, to turn the darkness into light. If you only had a small light, a little candle, a little match. A small light is not going to be good enough for a very thick darkness. He says that Rebbe gives an example of a deep darkness in a cellar. If you have, if you're in the house, it's dark outside, but it's not that thick darkness when you go to the basement. So then a little candle will give light to the room. You want to go down to your basement? The oxygen in the ear is much thicker. You're deeper because you're in the basement, which is under the ground. It's not just that it's not light outside, but it's a deeper darkness because of you're under the ground. This thick oxygen in air, a small candle is not going to do the job. You need a greater light. A small candle, a small candle will go out immediately in a thick darkness of room because it's not going to have any oxygen to grow to continue to be light, and therefore a candle won't work. You need a torch. So too, to light up this world and this time of this world at the end of Mashiach, the Rebbe say this triple darkness. Who I they are alien b'yos, you need a greater light. And this is why the soul came down to this world. Because the Neravai, what is God's candle? Is the soul of man. And through the candle and the light of Torah mitzvahs. Like the Rebbe always says, when we learned in all our maamarim about Hanukkah, that there's the psila, there's the different components of the candle. So there's the neshama, and then there's Torah mitzvahs, and together the neshama and Torah mitzvahs make up a fire that could light up the darkness. And then here the Rebbe talks about the next stage, that there's two cheshbonis. The first calculation is what you accomplish through the struggle. That through the struggle, there's a yerida tzarach aliyah. That through a person conquering, the moishel be yitzram. So then you understand cheshbon shalom. You understand your purpose in the world is to exercise the restraint. But then there's the next level of avodas, hapcha, change the world, transform the world. That's the next cheshbon. And how do you do that? With the great Shema Yagoda, the great light, through the ner of Torah mitzvahs, the proactive, the positive, to bring down the light that's not enough to survive or restrain yourself, but to transform the space of darkness. This is a deeper cheshbon, a deeper evaluation of what's this whole about. It's not just about an exercise of survival in such a world, but it's an exercise of transformation. You transform this world. And the more the darkness, the more a person has to bring the light. And what is the light in this case? Torah mitzvahs. Okay, so like we learned in the pasuk continues. Tibana v'tikoinin ir Sichon. The Sichon, the city of Sichon should be built. And from the word koinin is established. What is Sichon? Again, this is all we learned, we saw before in the pasuk. This is all poetic talk of the Torah about who Sichon was, who the Jewish people conquered. But we're applying this all like the Gemara in Baba Basha says. It's all talking about us. Sichon is the city, who's conquering, who's fighting. What's happening? It's the Jewish person. It's the person's struggle in this world and purpose in this world. So Moishlim, the person who's Moishlim the Yetzirah, makes a cheshbon, both a cheshbon of iskafi and the cheshbon of ishapcha, the cheshbon of restraining yourself and transforming your space of influence. What's Tibana v'tikonin ir Sichon? Build up the city of Sichon. Hine ir Sichon is tefillah. Sichon is prayer. Shenikra Sicha b'sin smalis, because although Sichon is with a samach, and Sicha, which is to talk, is with a sin, with the same sounding. So Sichon is referring to prayer. Yitzchak, our father, went out the suach to speak, so to say, in the field, is that he davened mincha. Upir Shrashi, Lashon Tefillah, he davened. Yishbach Sicho, another of the prayer of the poor man, chapter 102, is pours out his sicha, his talk, his prayer to God. The Talmud teaches us in Avodas Zarah. What does it mean, sicha, to speak? It doesn't mean to speak. It's a language of prayer. So why is prayer called Sicha. Why do we call it Sicha? Now, Sicha means, again, a few things. Sicha means to talk, and Sicha also means to swim. So Achainin, the idea is like this. Not just that, and prayer is obviously through speech. Not only is that Sicha is a language of speech, the Sicha hu adibur belachish b'chashai, in the types of speaking. The word Sicha in speaking is a silent prayer. That's why it's really representing the Shmona Esrei D'Amidah. Ubehester is an slice of belachash, that the prayer is the silent prayer. So it's in speaking, we have different languages, different terminologies, that Hebrew words for speech. So the word Sicha of the words of Hebrew in speech, Lashon HaKodesh, is a word that talks about a silent prayer, a deep prayer, personal prayer. What does Sicha also mean? It's movement, like to swim. It moves from place to place. The person who's moving through swimming, like. The Pirish Loshut B'mayim, what does it mean to swim in the water? When you're swimming in the water, you're moving from point A to point B. So Sicha means a silent prayer. It also means like a movement. What does this mean? We also find Maamar Azal. It says, Da'aga b'leiv ish yisechenu. It says if a person has a da'aga b'leiv, if a person has worries, something that's sitting on your heart, is ish yisechenu, a person should yisichenu. So what does yisichenu mean? We said the word siach means two things. Beis pirushim, there's two ideas. Yashichena midaitai. One is just push it out of your head. Sometimes if you have overwhelming worries, the way to deal with it, sometimes in certain situations, is to push it out of your head. Lashon hesach das, kind of put it away. Don't pay attention to it, especially if it's something. We're not talking about that. Don't pay attention to something that you should address, or not. To just push it away. But something that it exists, nothing you could do about it. It just sits on you. So then just don't pay attention to it. Lashon hesach das. Shematik masiach taitei midagosai. You cut yourself off. You don't pay attention to your worries. Litkoya hadas b'Torah v'Avodas Hashem, and also and then focus on study and prayer, and also v'sichen elachem lashon deeper. Another idea is to talk to others. It means if you have worries on your heart, one way is to push it. If it's a worry that's something you can't do anything about, that's just sitting on you, so push it away. Push it away and focus on studying Torah. Or if you need to, talk to someone else about it, and that will help you get through the situation. So we see that the word sicha means either pushing, movement, or to speak. What's it mean? What is movement in prayer? We know what talking in prayer is, but what's movement in prayer? What are we praying for? What are we seeking for in prayer? That's why, by the way, we have a lot of the maamarim, and we learned some of them, that talks about why a day like Rosh Hashanah, which is such a big day, which is the day of crowning the king, right? The coronation night, is the prayers are so much about seemingly mundane things. I need refuah, I need Yeshua, I need parnasa, I need things from Hashem, things that you need physically. But the physical needs are just a trigger. Because when God fulfills a physical need, even though you only see it from its limited space, whether it's healing or parnasa or shidduchim, whatever it is a person needs, everyone knows what they need. But it's a method, it's a way that the soviv kolam, when God answers your request, and the bigger, so to say, the deal is that the quest is answered. Sometimes it seems easy, sometimes it seems difficult. Is all a revelation of soviv kolam. So that's what he says. But so what is the real? It means you have to look at what's the tafel, what's the ikr, what's the main point, and what's the secondary. Is the main point that I need help, whatever it is you need help from God, and the secondary is that how does God help me by revealing the infinite light, or the purpose of prayer is to bring the infinite light, and sometimes the trigger is in what I need. So the Rebbe says, Bakasha betfila is that there should be a revelation of Sovikla. That, I just was learning a Maamar. The Rebbe says about that. It's the story goes that when Reb Chia, that the Rabbeinu HaKadosh met Elijah the prophet, he said that he has to wake up the fathers differently, because if they all pray together, they'll bring tremendous change to the world. If they say that God has to resurrect the dead, he'll have to do it, because three fathers together they daven. They have to daven separately. They're too powerful. So Rebbe said, who could do that today? In his times, so they said Reb Chia Bana. Reb Chia was a student of Rebbe. So Rebbe put them up to the Amud. They davened. And when they started to daven, the world started to shake. He said, let it rain, it pour. They said, Mechaya Mason, the graves start to shake. So the question is, why did they daven many times? Why did it happen when they davened? So one is that they davened for the Amud. They davened as a Chazar Sashatz. But also because Rebbe is stabbed, when Rebbe put them there, Rebbe's in charge, Rebbe's the Nasi. When Rebbe puts, because Reb Chia and his children, they didn't think about the physical needs of the world. They were very spiritual people. But when they were able to channel that energy into physical, the graves start to shake. So that's the idea. The idea is to bring Soviv Kalam. Reb Chia was thinking about, I bring down the infinite light in a spiritual way. But when you could channel that infinite light into the physicality, the graves start to shake. The idea is that the infinite light should enclose itself into the world. That's why when one of the ways we pray is we say, let God's will, but let there be a new will. The idea is that God, the essence of God, is beyond the will. Because the will means you have to want something. I don't want anything. If a person is beyond the world, you don't want anything. You're not connected to any want. And we want God to have a want in the brachas of Shemona Esrei. Like I said, your Reb Chia with Davin, he didn't care about these things. But when you start caring about these things, then the translation is that the Soviv Kolam comes down in Goyal Yisrael. Redeem the Jewish people. That's not a concept of revelation. Your revelation of your infinite light should translate in the redemption of the Jewish people, Goyal Yisrael. Im Varach Hashanim, bless me with parnasa. Give me what I need in my parnasa, channel that infinite light into the physicality of this world. That's true Shmei Agadol. Because the infinite light, when it gets channeled into the physicality, that's truly Soviv going into Memali. The infinite light going into the space of this world. That's why tefillah is movement. It's movement both by the individual, also movement by God. You're moving and rechanneling and focusing the infinite energy into needs, and because the person's needs, we're not all Reb Chia and his sons. We do have needs, and our needs, sometimes we stand before God and we say, I need to be healed. I need to find a job. I need to have, I want to find a shidduch. I want to get married. And by davening, has the ability to channel the infinite light, from the place that there are no limitations, to bring it into the specific need that you're asking for. And it's not, and again, they work hand in hand. It's not just that the idea is that the infinite light, it's only a trigger, but it's also a vessel. That it's a vessel that when it comes into a specific need, it's the true revelation of the infinite light of the Soviv Kalamim into the space of this world. By changing something in this world, healing that person, finding the job for that person. Because God on his own, without moving him and channeling him into the 18 brachas of the Shemona Esrei, Lav the Islay Mikol Inim Midis Klal, God's beyond any of these definitions. He has no these attributes. He has no rotzin. You have to create the will. That's why davening, again, back to Rosh Hashanah. Why do we talk about crowning God as king? He has to want to be king. He has to want to see us as a people, and he wants to be king. That's why we say, be a king over the world. He's beyond that in his essence. We have to channel the focus of the infinite to want to be king over this world. And he's cut off from all this. But nevertheless, through tefillah, that's the sicha, the movement. He moves from his high, abstract place, so to say. He doesn't even have a desire. Not just to have a rotzin, to a want, but a rotzin all the way down to the detail. To Reifach Chaylim, Baruch Hashanim, Goyal Yisrael, redeem the Jewish people, bless the Jewish people, bless the world. This awakening from above, this flow that we're able to bring down through prayer. is Yehi Rotza Nikra Sicha V'Azazah Shel Mayla Mata. That's what it means, movement. That's why tefillah is movement, not just movement by us. We cause movement by God, Lord. This movement from above down, channeling the focus and energy of the infinite light into the details of this world. And that's why there are no, the highest, it's always the question that Shema Yisrael is such a tefillah that's abstract. We talk about God and we have the love of God and Yira, Peniftal Vavchem, right? All this is like spiritual. And then we stand the silence from Nesr and we ask for physical needs. So what's higher? The higher is the Shemona Esrei. That's the Haidah. Is because then your relationship with God, that's an abstract. You can say the story of the Chassid, his wife would send him always to the Rebbe to get an ancient story, to the Rebbe to get a blessing for the family. And every time he would go, he would forget about it and he would just listen to the Maamar and listen to the Chassidus. So though that's very noble, but the woman's right. That's why she's a Keres Abayis. That's why Eshes Chayil Teres Bailet. That's why the woman is really the crown. Because actually that focus that she says, go to the Rebbe and ask him because our daughter needs to get married, or we need food on the table. That's truly bringing Saiviv down to Mimali. But that's the first Sicha, that's the movement by the Yisrus Tata, but we have to awaken it. This movement that we accomplish is through prayer. Through Sicha, I mean, like we said, Sicha has two translations. The Sicha of flow, movement, to swim, and the Sicha of talk, of speech. Ki ruach aisi ruach, because it's our spirit. When we daven, and the Rebbe says also that what inspires it? Inspires it is our awakening from God. He hears the words and he moves. But also within ourselves, we have to have Hazazah. In Chassidus, this is the reason why I want to learn this Maamar. A lot of times, unfortunately, we have a long Maamar. We don't want to do it because it's so long. We only have an hour to study for this week's parsha, and we miss out on these beautiful maamarim. So that's why this time we did something different. We just went in the middle of the maamar to get to the point, to get to the focus of the maamar. So over here also, in Chassidus is a big idea of Hazazah. You go to Fabringen, you'll hear a lot of times they talk about there should be a Hazazah. Hazazah means some movement inside of you. Hazazah means move. Don't be stationary. So here, Lashon HaSachav Hazazah, the idea of movement in the person. So we talk about movement by God. What is tefillah from the person? The person is crying. Tza'aka is crying out. When things are painful to you. Like it says about the prayer of the poor man who pours his heart. Yishvach is to pour your heart out to Hashem. Your movement to God. Lashon yishvach hainu shvichas hanefesh, totally pouring out your whole soul. Kasher tsar lo ma'oid mashar behevel ba. And what is the pain? The pain is all depending on the person, but the pain also is in the wastefulness of our life. Realizing means as we get older, of course, it doesn't change needs. Again, it's both things. But what's really should be painful to the person, the tsar, is how have I spent the 70 years, 80 years, 100 years of life that God gave me? I'm sitting in darkness. I'm sitting in darkness and wastefulness. I'm moving in darkness. Most of my time. And it's not always because you made bad choices. A lot, even things that are like Kaddish Atzmach of Mutalach, even in the permissible. The permissible world is dark. And how do you have an hazazah inside of you? How do you start making movement and realizing and have the pain? Is also making a cheshbon. The Yesimar the Cheshbon of the word Cheshbon. Also, we have Mimar the Cheshbon, someone who's bitter from the evaluations. You're bitter about what's going on with your life. B'chol laila kanal every night. When you make a quick evaluation or not so quick evaluation of what you spent your day on, it's like they say, it becomes a little bitter sometimes in all the actions, speech, and thoughts you did that weren't for God. Whether it is that you didn't do enough in Torah mitzvahs, or whether what you did spend yourself, your time, and your focus on in your taivas and your pleasures. And this is what drives you. When you wake up and you go to sleep, is another dollar or another indulgement. And the truth of life, which is Torah mitzvahs, is forgotten from the luach of from the motherboard. Because you're preoccupied in either trying to just go through life or to do the things you want to do, the pleasures you want to do. You put your back to God. You give God no heart. And the more you understand godliness, the more painful it is that you're not involved. And that when a person pours out their heart, in the depth of the soul, giving over your soul, in the depth of the heart, that starts to cause movement. That gets the engines going. The Cheshbon of shalom, making the evaluation, that starts the Sichon. That starts the siach, the hazaza, the movement. You want to cut yourself off and separate yourself from the animal soul that's within you. That's also why, again, all the verses that we're talking about. When a person starts to realize, make cheshbon means to make the evaluation. That builds up the city of Sichon, the city of prayer. Your prayer starts to be built properly. He said siach is prayer, and that's hazaza, and that's tefillah, that's dibur, is when you're davening from cheshbon, it's cheshbon hanefesh. When you make evaluation, then the prayer starts to be proper. Then you start pouring out your heart. You start cutting yourself off and moving, being sunken into the attributes of the animal soul. So that's the first part of the pasuk. But what we said before was the first part of the pasuk was Tibana v'tikonin ir sichon. That's the ir sichon. But what's the tibana v'tikonin? To build it, v'tikonin, and from the word to establish it. Building it is not just in your mind and your heart. You also have to speak. Like we said, this literal translation of sicha means to speak. That's what we call the word building. We know when we talk in Chassidic of building, it means words. Building is stone. Stones are words and letters. Like you build a house from stones. So too prayer is called homes. That the letters are called stones. And therefore, it's not enough that the tefillah has to be something that you speak. That's why, one of the requirements of tefillah is you have to hear yourself. You have to actually articulate the words. That's what King David said. Erev v'voiker v'tzarayim, evening, morning, and afternoon. Asicha v'ema v'yishma koili. Asicha from the word speaking, but also v'yishma koili. You have to hear the words. You have to hear my voice. When you properly pray, you have all the background, the depth of it, but also the articulation of it, then God hears our voice. So that's the tibana. Tibana binyan is the building of it is through the words of prayer, and behind the word is the hazaza, the movement, moving away, the realization. Open up your motherboard to God. So that's the word tibana, to build. What's tikoinen? To establish. So he says, appears tikoinen, it's brought down about charity, that through charity, through tzedakah, you establish. I see you with tzedek, with justice. We know that from there we learn a person has to give charity before they daven. Rabbi Lazar would first give money to a poor person and then he would pray. So the tikoinen is through tzedakah. Through charity is another way to establish your davening. Sichon also means a pleasant talk. We could also apply this to not just the tefillah, but also through studying of Torah. When we speak the words of Torah. Like King David said, Ma hafti Torah secha, I love Torah. Kol hayom hisi chasi, it's my words. It's not enough you have to speak, to articulate Torah. Your Torah mitzvahs are sicha to me, are speech to me. When a person speaks the words of Torah, whether you're saying Chumash or Mishnah or Mishnayos or the halachas or the goddess of the Torah, that's talking. And also talking and also movement. The movement through Torah. Pasuk Ksaisav Tal Tilim Shahir Rabbi Kiva Derish Akol Koitz V'Koitz Tilei Tilim Shalachas. That Rabbi Akiva was able to learn from every design of every letter, tons and tons of piles and piles, hills and hills of different laws, meaning to analyze the words of Torah. We learned many times the laws of Torah are like hair, meaning to say that because the laws come into the details of that God's wisdom comes down into detail. For instance, a sukkah has to be so tall, or tzitzis is only such a way, or lighting candles. Whatever the law is of Torah comes down into these details. It's like hair. Seemingly hair is lifeless. So too, seemingly a mitzvah has no. It's so abstract from godliness. Sometimes it's just in the details. But that's the whole point. It's like hair because sometimes something so great has to come into only in such a method, and only in such a method you could capture the essence of godliness. That's the laws of Torah. It's a white, clean hair. Person has hair on the head, and the brain, so to say, because otherwise the hair wouldn't grow. So the sign that the hair is connected is that it's growing. And when it continues to grow, it means it's connected to the person, but you don't feel it. You can cut hair, you don't feel any pain. If you cut your finger, you feel pain. Why? Because the life is very, very little coming through it. So mitzvahs we've learned many times, the laws of Torah. When through the laws of Torah, we bring down God's wisdom. No thought could really grab it. But how do you grasp it? Through the actual performance of the mitzvah. That God's great depth is only be able to reveal itself like the wisdom, like the koach hamoich, the power of the brain that reveals itself in the ear. You don't know how it is, but that's the way it is. You don't feel the life in the hair, but you see it's growing. That's a sign that it's connected. So too in the mitzvahs, they're so great. You don't see where's the godliness in this mitzvah. My sukkah, what's so important? It's everything, the details of the mitzvah, and you don't accomplish anything if you don't perform the mitzvah exactly the way the Torah tells you to do. That's what we say about Aaron HaKohen, about the hair, that the shemen that went on the hair of Aaron, shemen mishchas kodesh, the holy anointing oil, that kodesh, the most abstract. We know that there's kadosh with a vav, or kodesh without a vav. Even the most abstract levels of godliness come down through the laws of Torah. And that's also movement. Through the sicha, through the talking, the learning the laws of Torah. Torah is called like a groom, which means to bring down. Chus is to bring down the levels of the abstract into the details of the law. That's why King David said, I love Torah, I love mitzvahs, because it's my sicha, through my talking, through my verbalizing, and my movement of the laws of Torah, I get to the essence. When I speak, when I learn the halachas, I'm bringing down, I'm both ideas of the sicha, of talking Torah, that makes a hazaza, brings down the infinite into the law. What does it mean to go on the way of your talk? Is to those who study the laws of Torah. That's why it says that's building. When you learn Torah, you're building this world. By helping in the building of this world through the Torah mitzvahs. They're not my children, they're my builders. And the Rebbe continues, we have to stop here. There's the continuation, like we saw, there's many other verses. And the idea is the fire. And the fire, the idea is not just to have all these parts, but to connect all these parts is to the passion. And he talks about the different levels of the lahava, the eish of Cheshbon, the eish that comes out of the valuation, and the lahava, the flame that comes from the tefillah. He talks about the difference between the red, the dark fire that's around the wick, which is the blue, which is like the burning of the nefesh of Bahamas, and the white fire, the pure fire that comes down for the purpose of just bringing down the revelation of godliness. But that's a continuation of the maamar. Like I said, it's a long maamar, but it's a beautiful maamar. And thank you all for joining. As Hashem, maybe next year we'll continue and finish off the next part of the maamar. Laila Tov, everyone. Take care.
Thank you, Rabbi.